I have a 23-page Nigerian scammers playbook. So, and it starts off, hi, how are you? And they have answers. So if I'm engaging with a scammer now, I'll go onto the playbook and I will say, what is your favourite sport? And you'll see it's a pre-formatted, I like to play tennis because we have a victim of a client that is a widow. Okay, I'm a widow. Or a client's divorced. So we're going to ask her some information about how did that all happen? My husband cheated on me. Tip. Okay, now I can tap into that. It's not just that one person sitting in a cafe or in their garage at home. This is a well-oiled machine. If you weren't meeting your quotas, you're beaten. You're electrocuted. They are held under armed guard that is run by organised crime, and you'll be working 16, 17-hour days.
They're virtually prisoners.
They are.
Human trafficking.
You cannot leave. Yeah. And if you do leave, you could be killed. Yeah. End of story.
In part 2 of my chat with detective turned private investigator Kylee Dennis, we take an inside look at romance scams. Kylee reveals who's behind these scams, who is being targeted, and how we can prevent them. We also talked about the horrific treatment of people coerced into working these scams. I think you're going to be shocked by the magnitude of these crimes, but also learn a lot about what goes on in this growing world. Kylee Dennis, welcome back to part 2.
Thank you.
Are you still saying it's a privilege to be here?
It is a privilege to be here. I'm still excited. I will talk underwater.
How do romance scams typically work? Give us we've heard in part 1 about your mum's situation. Mm-hmm. Just give us an overview of how they generally start and play out.
So you go onto a dating app.
Yep.
You pick your subject, the person that you are interested in. You will ask a question, hi, how are you? Tell me a bit more about you. You'll start engaging with them. And I engage with scammers on dating apps a lot.
Yep. So, and it's always photo with the on the
photo.
Yep.
Always photo. They might have 2 or 3.
Yep.
And it'll just be an age, an occupation, maybe where they live, Sydney or something like that, and a couple of little bits of information about their interests. Yeah. They're getting a bit better now. They're putting a little bit more information into their bio. So then you'll just say, hi, how are you? Stephen. Yeah. They'll go, hi, how are you? Samantha. Quick question. And then they will say, let's take this conversation. Oh, do you have a WhatsApp number or do you have Telegram or Zangi? Yeah. So we'll go into an encrypted messaging platform.
So that's the first red flag?
First red flag, straight away. Even if they ask you, I want you to stay onto a dating app as much as you can, but as soon as they push you onto that messaging platform, they start taking control. Okay. And then you will spend your life with your phone in your hand replying back to them, and that's your relationship. Yeah. So they will then take me over to that, and then we will just start talking. So I'm currently engaging with someone now, but we're doing it by email. But I've got a couple of different scammers because the language is different and the way they're talking to me is different. So that's 2 different scammers, at the same time engaging with me. But most of my other times are always on Telegram or WhatsApp. Okay. A couple of times Zangi, but I don't. I say to them, I've only got Telegram or WhatsApp. Yep. We go on that, and then we just start talking. They start sending photos. Then they start love bombing. You're beautiful. I love your eyes. Send me a photo of yourself. Just that typical language. And then they'll talk about their job. They'll talk about their family. I have a daughter. She's in boarding school. I'm on an oil rig out in the middle of nowhere. And they'll start talking, and they'll start talking about their issues within their workplace.
Yeah. There's always, like out on an oil rig or in Turkey where there was an earthquake, or always looking for a reason why they're not there. But
yes. Yes.
Okay.
And look, and the question I say to everybody, why you went onto a dating app in the first place to meet somebody? Yeah. Correct. And you really wanted to go to the movies and out for dinner? Yep. Correct. Or on a cruise or whatever? Correct.
Where is this person?
Why are you engaging with someone who's apparently a civil engineer on an oil rig in the middle of Netherlands or wherever that they're telling you that they work 3 months solid, which is not true how oil rigs work, but that's what you want to engage with. And I say, everybody, that's your red flag because you went on a dating app to go out for lunch with somebody or to walk along the beach, but you're spending all your time on an encrypted messaging platform talking. That's not what you wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Oh, I want them to go, well, she's right. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I really want to have someone cuddle me or hold my hand. Yeah. That's what you want.
Well, okay, if we're looking at the red flags, it's a fairly obvious one, isn't it? Just when you break it down like that.
It's quite simple.
It's simple in that if you're on a dating app, wouldn't the next step be let's catch up for a coffee or something like that?
And I always say to one, and because I know I'm talking to scammers, because I do all the reverse image.
So this is when you. I don't want to sell you out as just someone desperate to find love, but this is your business.
This is my business.
Your clients are coming to you with they've been approached and you're doing your research.
Yes, and look,
your investigation.
I need to understand, and I have I have a special phone and certain identities and everything like that. I need to understand how scammers work. I need to understand their language. I need to understand the process from point 1 to point Z. At what point are they going to ask me for money? Where are they working? Is there any new jobs that they're now undertaking? Like I've had a lumberjack. I've never had a lumberjack before, which was interesting, in California. He turned out to be a 15-year-old Nigerian boy, which at the end of the conversation I did say to him, I make up a story that I'm a journalist and I'm writing an article or some garbage. So he sent me a photo and he explained, I'm a 15-year-old boy. I go to school during the day and I scam at night because I have no money. And by the way, would you like to buy me a laptop? Well, of course I said no. I'm not going to buy you anything. But so I do that to learn their processes. Is anything changing? Is the script changing? What are they doing differently?
And you say a script, and
is scripted.
You've identified the fact that they're not readily available, which is... No. Is there anything, starting right at the start with the photos? Like, is there anything, a common theme you see in the photos?
Look, I always say if the photos look really good, and we go back to that halo bias, we look at someone who's got a very good-looking photo or a doctor or an engineer or something that has a really good profession, we tend to trust that. So and I'm not saying that the ugly photos, like it's a really hard thing to say. Scammers will use beautiful looking people or beautiful photos, and they are, whether they've been doctored or whatever. That's my first red flag. The second red flag is how much information is actually in the profile. If there's limited information, just don't go there. That's a red flag. Because if I'm wanting to look for somebody, I'm putting in divorced female with 2 kids, a cat. I love this. Here are all my interests. Blah 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 blah, and that's what I would put in my dating if I was online dating. As my fake profiles, I don't put that. I put basic information, and then the scammers tap onto me, and then I know that they're scammers.
Okay.
So I've had real people too, but limited information for me is a red flag.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the photos, well, I suppose it's a dating app, so people are going to put their best photos, so it's hard to filter from there.
Yes.
Although there was a girl I knew that was going online dating, and she was asking me for my opinions of the blokes. I said, anyone that's got a photo with his shirt off and patting a dog, get rid of them.
That's a red flag.
That was red flag.
Yeah, 100%.
That was the way I helped her sift through those. Okay, so limited information.
Yes.
Get you off the app onto a different communication
Straight away.
Not readily available.
Yep.
What's the next move? Then do they get love bombed with messages?
Always. Yep. And you get told how not that I'm saying that people aren't beautiful and all that, but you will be told that you are the love of their life. I may have lost my wife to cancer, 5 years ago, but I wish I'd met you before that because you are far more special than she is. So it's this intense love connection.
Yeah.
And I see how that works.
Yeah.
I can see when I had a victim who was a victim of domestic violence for 20 years, and I could see how that love bombing would work. And she said, once I got involved and told her that she was a victim of a scam, she said, I I still miss that language. I still miss what he was saying, those virtual hugs. The money is irrelevant now. It's the virtual hugs, because she'd always been told that she was worthless in her marriage. And she was belted and, really treated as we know, DV victims are. But the scammer knew that. Yeah. So they tapped into that small piece of information, because she had told them that she was married and was a victim of domestic violence. So then the scammer utilised that.
I'm seeing you're opening my eyes up to it and taking away my judgment, because when you're saying that, I'm thinking, how the hell is someone saying, you're the love of my life and you haven't even met and all that? But you're looking at people that are on the apps to start with that clearly haven't found their connection.
Yep.
So there's starting point, a degree of vulnerability. You don't know what the backstory is.
Yeah.
And then we all love compliments.
Yes,
like you can feed off it all day if people are complimenting you. So, this is making me feel good.
Yes.
So but the psychology of it, and there is a real psychology to it, isn't how they just trap people in on it.
And it's interesting because you can be taken, and I call it that vortex.
Yeah.
And we go back to, you're a widow, for example, and you've lost your, like, say, for example, I lost my husband.
Yep.
And I'm a widow, so yes, I have, I want to now find somebody.
Yeah.
So that is that first step of vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's that strength. I mean, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability being a strength. So you put yourself out there because you think, I'm now wanting somebody to be part of my life. The scammer knows that you are a widow because you put that in your dating profile. You say widow.
Okay, so
tick. Yeah. Right, so here's the first fishing hook, right? So I go
there's
in.
some sadness that comes from.
Absolutely. And then what the scammer does is go, I am also a widow.
Yeah.
So now you've got something similar.
Yeah.
So then the scammer can now touch it. And now online, there are scripts out there. This is what, and they call the victims clients. Yeah. If you want to love bomb a client, this is what you're going to say.
So this is a playbook.
This is a playbook.
For scammers.
So I have a 23-page Nigerian scammers playbook.
Yeah.
So, and it starts off, hi, how are you? And they have answers. So if I'm engaging with a scammer now, I'll go into the playbook and I will say, oh, okay, what is your favourite sport? Yeah. And you'll see it's a pre-formatted, I like to play tennis because blah, and I go, okay, rightio, I now know that he's got the playbook as well.
Okay.
So I try to
you've seen the narrative.
Yeah, so I can see what they're going to say. But that's what they're doing. They're using that playbook. Okay, we have a victim of a client that is a widow. Okay, I'm a widow. Yep. Or a client's divorced, so we're going to ask her some information about, tell me a bit about how did that all happen?
Yeah.
My husband cheated on me. Tip. Okay, now I can tap into that. So they just take those bits of information and then start creating that narrative. Yeah. And once you're taken into this world, and you are isolated, and I can feel it because some days I'm going, when are they going to text me? I've asked them a question. I want them to answer. I know I'm talking to a scammer. I just want to see what their next strategy is. Yeah. Now, if I was falling for that, of course you sit there with your phone and wanting that connection, because now you're starting to connect with someone who's interested in you. Yeah.
And if you start flirting with someone via text, it can become addictive, can't it?
Absolutely.
I can imagine they're getting the rush of the excitement. Oh, he's contacted me again, or she's contacted me again, and a little bit as it builds up, a little bit of flirtation and the connection.
And you hit the nail on the head. If someone tells you look great, you just go,
oh, cool. Let's keep going.
This I'm feeling $1 million.
Yeah.
And that's all they have to do is say, your eyes are beautiful. Yeah. I love your smile. Now, if you're, and we go back to my DV girl, she didn't have any of that.
So, okay, yeah. I can see
you see
it.
that?
Yeah,
and that's why I try to say to everyone, this is not about being stupid. This is about a background that someone's gone through. And I'll use my mum. My mum has been single for 20 years. Yeah. So when Donald, the scammer, came in on, and he was saying to her, I can't wait to spend time with you. Yeah. We are going to go on a cruise. We're going to build this. And I could see all this love language, and knowing what my mum wanted, this tapped into exactly what she was missing in her life.
And
that's what they do. Yeah. So So victims aren't stupid.
Yeah.
They're just listening to someone, because why would they believe that it's a scammer? There's no reason for them to believe that.
Well, I think they're in that vortex of so looking for that companionship, and it is a private thing when you're first starting off a relationship.
Yeah.
So you're not sharing it with everyone, and
No.
I can, and with your mum, it's sort of. Even if it was a legitimate one,
Yep.
she'd be a bit hesitant in telling anyone that I'm starting to see someone.
Yeah.
So I can imagine why they'd sit on that. When does it go into how do they start getting the money or making a benefit?
So
from
they
it?
just start telling a story. So they will start, and it is drip feeding. They're not. I mean, I've had a few that have been very quick, wanting money straight away. But normally they will start with, and we'll use the oil rig, for example.
Yep.
Look, I can't video call you. We've got a bit of problem with Wi-Fi. I can't get to my bank. Would you be able to just send me, some money? The only way we can do it is through a gift card.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, how much do you need? Look, $30 would be all right. So you hop off down to Woolies, pick up your gift card, come back, you take a photo of the back of the gift card with the code, and you send it to them, right?
Yeah.
So it is that slow drip feed.
And that could
this is
be,
the urgency.
like I would imagine if I was trying to create a narrative there, I'm on an oil rig, internet's down or whatever, can't get access to my bank accounts, but it's my child's birthday. I just need to send him something. Yeah,
so if you send me the gift card, I will then be able to send that on. Oh, that sounds legitimate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
And you're thinking he's not asking the world, he's just asking for a $30 gift card.
That's right, $30.
Yeah.
And then that just slowly creeps up.
Yep.
There's an urgency. I think one of the scammers said to me, look, I've got some problems with the tools that are on the oil rig. I need to buy some extra tool. It doesn't make any sense. But remember, when you're involved with that person, that does make sense because they have laid the foundations and now they're just slowly starting to build the house. Yeah. So they have done that, maybe in 6 weeks of laying or a couple of months. Then all of a sudden they're saying, I've got a problem with, something to do with the workers and I need to do this. And then all of a sudden you're then sending money. Or I've got this great investment opportunity. I've just found out. Please don't tell anybody. This is just between you and I. So they then start feeding that part. So it's that they're drip feeding urgency and necessity, and you're the only one that is going to be able to help me.
Yeah, I can see how it happens.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
and I also like the internet and social media, and that has evolved so quickly. People haven't caught up with it, and I would not now. I'm not that naive, but if someone's a photo, well, that's a person. There's a photo. And trust it. And I would imagine from a generational thing, even older people would. Well, it's online. I've seen his photo.
That's right.
He exists.
And why would they question that?
Yeah.
Because they're not inclined to question it. Maybe an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old would question more things online than what an older person. This is in the romance world.
Yeah.
They would look at that saying, well, that's a real person that has gone onto that dating app, has paid for that privilege to be onto that dating app, so they must be real.
Okay.
They don't think, well, how many people on this dating app is not real?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, all dating apps can have fake people in them. I mean, I know there are some dating apps that have got, the ability to be able to, you've got to, do a reverse tick image. But I've done that using my fake profile.
Explain the reverse tick image.
So what they've asked me to do on one of the dating things was to take a photo of myself, a live moving photo, and then they will self-verify myself to say that photo is real. Yeah. But the photo that's on my dating profile is my photo, but it's been tweaked a bit through AI to make me look a little bit older and a little bigger and all this sort of stuff. So the two photos are not similar, but the app has just ticked the box to say self-verified, so this is right. So that looks legitimate.
Okay, yeah.
So again, that doesn't actually work. There's some great apps out there now that I think that you actually have to do this. You've got to talk, you've got to show identification and different bits and pieces. But some of the basic ones, you don't have to do that. I mean, some of the ones I haven't been able to get on, that's fine, which is fine. But scammers are a little bit better at manipulating the system than possibly than what I do.
It's a different level on the dating apps. people, I would imagine, misrepresent themselves, but they're not after the finances, they're just after the short-term relationship.
Correct.
So there'd be a lot of that.
Yes.
So you push that aside.
Yes.
But the scammers are at a different level, aren't
100%.
they? Yeah.
They're at the pure evil level. Their sole purpose is financial destruction.
Yeah.
And that's their end goal.
As distinct from someone on there, I'm looking for a long-term relationship. Hey, can we catch up? And want to sleep with the person that night.
Correct. That's
you got
different.
that lot.
Yes.
But the scammers are patient.
Yes.
And that, in their preparation to drag it on, that would give comfort to people as well, I would imagine.
Because why would you question it?
Yeah.
They're talking to me every day. Yeah. And the thing that we've got to realise, it's just, they're not just talking to my profile, you know, my Robert and my Samantha. They're talking to half a dozen or dozens of other people.
So they're having
it's
bets.
It's just
everywhere.
continual, you know. And it's interesting because a couple of times when I've spoken to them, they've got my name mixed up. Yeah. So they've called me something else. So that's a red flag. Yeah. But I know that that's a red flag. But if it was, you know, say it was my mum who really wasn't thinking twice about it and said, why did you call me, you know, Michelle? Yeah. They would go, oh, I'm so sorry.
That's my mother's name or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just talking to someone else where I know, okay, now you're talking to
you've slipped up.
Yeah, you've slipped up. And that's what we've got to understand. Yeah. It's not just that one person sitting in a cafe or in their garage at home. Yeah. This is a well-oiled machine. This is whiteboards. This is, we know that we can get us Aussies. We know if we go on this dating app, we can get this.
And see, a dating app from a naive point of view, I think you'd be looking at being taken advantage of emotionally in a quick hookup and then block them.
Yeah.
So that's the warning signs they're looking at. But these scammers are coming in with a completely different agenda. Yeah. And I could see how the potential victims miss
it all.
Yeah.
And again, because I suppose, and this is where we're failing in the way that we're educating, right? Because I have a big problem with everything has to be online. You know, you're defeating. We're basically working alongside scammers. You know, we want everybody to go online and do everything online. We're failing everybody, certainly in Australia, with face-to-face. We don't do this. Yeah. This is what we need to do more. Because we need to teach people and older Australians as well. And I say I'm 56, so when I talk, I say us oldies. Yeah. We need to, you know, be front and centre and teach people exactly what they're doing. So we've got to stop doing the digitised learnings and teach people and show them, well, here's a script, here is what scammers would do in any scam. We need to learn from each other and we need to have that conversation where it's easy for us to say, well, I was a victim. That's okay, Mary. Yeah, okay, you too, Rob. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. What can we learn from that? Because scammers want us to be isolated. That's the thing.
Is that another part that I'm sure I can't wait to tell my family about you being the victim, saying that to what's their playbook for that? Oh, look, they probably won't understand.
Absolutely. So they will actually say to you, don't tell any family and friends about our relationship. It is that special. Yeah. They won't understand. Yeah. And again, you've found somebody, you know, in inverted commas, you've found somebody, so you're not. I mean, my mum spoke to her scammer for 6 months. Now, she had...
that fills a loneliness void to start
100%.
With, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I used to say to her, at what point did you not think that talking to him at 11 o'clock at night, I know that he was in Turkey, I understand that was not healthy for you. Yeah. You know, you're in this isolate, you're still in your room, where you live, in your residence. You're not engaging with anybody else. You're talking to this person online that is giving you that sense of comfort. And what they would say is that, you know, I will talk to you tomorrow, my beautiful love. So the last person they talk to and the first person they talk to when they wake up. So when you've been alone for so long, scammers know that. This is great. I will be there. Remember, it's not the one scammer. I'll be there when she goes to bed and I'll be there first thing in the morning, and that's the first person they see. So
you wake up and you're excited. Oh, look.
Oh, my God, you know. Frank's, you know, Donald sent me a text message. Oh, great, I'll start doing it. But my mum, I noticed that she was sleeping in longer. Yeah. So she was speaking to the scams at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. and then was, not waking up until midday, and was missing a few, was late to a few, family functions, and was always tired. And I just thought it was a health issue, because I'd say, what's going on? Oh, no, nothing, because the scammer had isolated her and told her not to tell anybody.
Okay.
So if they'd actually told me earlier, maybe I'd picked it up earlier.
With from the financial gain side, so we talked about a gift card. How does it build up to more than that? Do they get access to bank accounts? Do they look for bank accounts?
They can ask you to create bank accounts. They will ask you to transfer monies. My mate needs some help. Can you do this for me? Which we know is illicit funds. So you transfer from one bank account to another. I've had victims who have gone and got loans. Some taken money off their home loan, not in major lots, but might just go in and say, look, I need 10,000 because the scammer has said, well, I want us to buy something. I just need a $10,000 loan. Once that happens, I'll be able to pay you back. Not a problem. They go and take money off their home loan, their savings, and they send it off to them through Western transfers.
Do they ever get that complicated where the scammers will send some money as a show of faith? Like, I borrow 100 and I need 100 for the gift card, and then a week later pay that 100 back?
Yes.
And then sort of, is trustworthy.
Yes.
Last time.
Absolutely. You'll get flowers. You might get a fake piece of jewellery. I haven't had that done, but I know of people that have had, but they've sent me this, and they've sent me photos of the house, and they've sent, something that legitimised that story, because that's all it is. It's just, I've received flowers for my birthday from, my love interest, because you've given them your home address. I'm not giving my home address to anybody. But they do give their home address. Yeah. So they're going to get something in return. And you think about, you spend a $100 gift card and the scammer wants to make sure that we're in the right relationship. Well, I'll give that back to you. Okay. It was just a borrowed...
And that would set everyone up going, well, they're trustworthy.
Yes,
I send it and it's come
done.
back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the biggest one that you've seen, as in someone that's lost significant, without naming names
the biggest one, I've had two. Yeah. I've had a CEO of a female, smart chick. She lost $500,000 through romance investment.
Right.
And she's devastated. And they're all devastated. Everybody's devastated. But she said, I'm more embarrassed that I'm an intelligent. She's in her 50s, and she just went down that romance that led into the investment side. Then I had a hard one. He had he was just. He's passed away. So he was invested in these scammers for years. So the ex-wife reached out to me, and I put a whole thing together to say that is, that photo's this, and this is where we believe the origins of where you're talking from. The phone numbers, they originate from Nigeria, etc. So I put this thing together. He didn't believe it. I tried to get the Queensland cops to do a welfare check because I was really concerned for his mental health. They didn't. They failed to do that. I'm not saying they could have done anything, but possibly they could have. Then he spent $57,000 on gift cards. He'd opened bank accounts. He was sending his pension, but he had alcoholic dementia. So they knew that he was unwell, and they just wore him down and wore him to the point that he died. He died last year, and that was heartbreaking because there were so many factors in this, and so many people could have helped that they didn't along the way, and the scams. And so I took his phone and his laptop, and so I kept talking to the scammers, and they were relentless. Yeah. They were just continually at him.
What sort of things were they coming at? Like you would push back a little bit, or would you?
Yeah, look, I took the role then as playing his sister, and I said that my brother was in hospital. He'd had something wrong with his throat, so he couldn't talk. Yeah. So I would talk to him on the phone. They had African accents, and what they were doing, they were just saying, well, you received this package before. You've paid us $200. There's another package, and the package is money. Here are the photos. It needs to come from FedEx, etc., etc. And they just were, the packages here, or one of them was, well, I'm your wife, you're meant to help me out. And, it was just that manipulation.
Keep going at you.
And they were relentless.
Yeah.
It just never stopped. So this victim, he was just continually bombarded on and he thought that he had a relationship with a male who was, this person in Australia, and we were going to do this, and we were going to, build this business, and this, and then he had this female who claimed that he was his wife, and so
he had a couple.
They had scammers going, had a few scammers going.
So that would have been like, once they've identified this bloke, we've got him here.
Absolutely.
I reckon we can get him again.
Yeah,
with
100%.
Another one.
So they take the topic of Michelle's this person role.
Yeah.
So and then we've got Steve's going to play this role, and then we've got this person's going to play this role, and they just bombarded. So he lost around 400,000, and that was a real hard because he had a health issue, and his ex-wife, who was beautiful, and his daughter, just beautiful people, tried so hard, and we all tried hard to get him away from the scammers.
Telling him.
And
what was this fascinates me. Like, it's when the facts are presented to them, they're just.
He was so deeply invested. So there was, and he had that little bit of. He was cautionary about a lot of things, and he had a bit of. He was smart too. He had a bit of an IT background, so though the facts were black and white presented to him, there was that mistrust. They had manipulated him so well that he believed them over anything that we had to say.
Well, I suppose, again, it's human nature. Like, we've all had friends, or we've been in relationships where you believe in the person even when the common sense is telling you, that's not right, and you just choose to.
Yeah. And look, and I actually said, and I made it known when I put it together, I don't know you. I have no reason to not tell you the truth. Yeah. This is my background. My mum's gone through, something similar. So please understand that what I'm telling you is truthful. You are a victim of a scam. Please, I need you to really stop. And the scammers opened up credit cards in fake names, sent it to his address. He sent them off. He was sending parcels on behalf of them, sending parcels to Malaysia.
The complexity of it,
huge.
You'd be overwhelmed.
Huge. You would need, and that's why, and this is the saddest part with this, is that after he passed, I reached out to a friend in New South Wales cops, and I said to him, this is not your jam, I know that, but can you get me into AFP? Just get me into somebody. So he then sent me to someone else who then said, no, we're not going to touch it. So then I reached out to someone else, and then the end result was report cyber, report the information, which I can't actually put all the information on report cyber because it's a 200-page brief. Yeah. So how do you put everything in there? And then that then got sent to the local police station in Queensland, who the local detective would have looked at that and went, oh, that's out of our jurisdiction. I can't do anything here. Yeah. So it's gone into the abyss. Now, my argument is there is information contained in that brief, whether it be the owner of the accounts for Apple, whether it be who opened up the mule accounts, where they originate. Like, there is enough. There's phone numbers, there's IP addresses. There's enough that I think you could put part of a puzzle, put it on a whiteboard and say, let's just leave that there because we know that puzzle piece is going to fit into something bigger, like an organised crime. Yeah. That just sits at my home in a folder.
It's difficult because you know the way police work as I do, and the different jurisdictions. You put all that together, send it off to Interpol or make connections with overseas law enforcement. You're not going to get a lot of attention on it. And I would just imagine walking into a police station, if I'd been scammed like that and I've seen it, or you've come to me, like your mum's, you walk in there and say this is going on, you'd be virtually turned around.
And look, that's really interesting. So I've and I haven't got a reply. So I've just proposed an initiative for New South Wales cops, and actually for all cops, which is for that purpose, that when they walk into the police station, the cops can say to them, well, here is something for you to look at, which talks about transnational organised crime, why we can't do anything about it at a local level. But here are some initiatives that we want you to look at. You're not going to remember now, but I want you to take this book. I hear everything you're saying. We are interested. We'll take a bit of that information, but I need you now to report it onto these. And this is why, this is transnational organised crime and this is what happens. So, and I think victims don't understand that. They need that something in their hand to actually read that.
I think that's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea. I'm just waiting for them to ring me and say, Kylee, come in and let's start this initiative. Because cops at a police station don't have time to and not and
we're
again,
not being critical of
no,
the
I'm not
individuals.
absolutely, but they don't have time to sit down and go through the whole discussion point about transnational organised crime. They trying to explain about scam compounds and why it's not in our jurisdiction to try to investigate something that's happening in Myanmar.
To investigate it, if they came in like your mum's stage, you'd have to have real-time access to all the messages and respond to, not dissimilar to what you do. So,
100%.
But I think education is crucial then,
Absolutely.
isn't it? It's what you're talking about there, like a big, if we drummed it into everyone's, if you receive this on a dating app, red flag.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not that complicated, really, is it?
Look, see, I don't think it's rocket science, and I'm really struggling with when I send out proposals for face-to-face education, I receive crickets back, and I sort of think, well, you're not doing the right thing, certainly in retirement villages. Yeah. For your oldies that are sitting there, they need to be educated face-to-face, and when you do face-to-face education, they love it because they get to ask you questions, and some of them may be the most simple questions. I got Microsoft rang me the other day and they just wanted to have a look at my laptop, but I just couldn't do anything. So I'm like, all right, Fran, let's not go there, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's happened to Fran. This is what we're going to learn from. We're not going to allow anyone remote access to your laptop. Please understand that. Simple things like that, because old Fran thought that I just couldn't do it then. Can you ring me back later? Fran would have allowed them access, which they would have then got in.
I know. Destruction on all levels. So for me, this idea, and I can talk about we spend $20 million on a ridiculous ad campaign for pumping up your tyres for fuel and all that. Seriously, for the love of God. I'm glad I found someone like-minded on that. I laughed at that. Make sure you keep airing your tyres and we'll save fuel.
We'll save fuel.
Wow.
Let's
what a great initiative.
Let's not put anyone in your car and, hey, how about give me $20 million, people, and I'll go around and educate people on scams. Hello. It's mind-blowing, the stupidity
What
of
about
people.
I think with dating apps, like if people are joining dating apps, if there was some sort of, these are the things you should look out for.
Well, they do have that.
Do they have that?
They have that.
But people just...
You don't do that.
I'm finding love. I don't care what's going on.
Yeah, they don't. And look, and I suppose, again, you join a dating app and it'll say, don't give money to someone you haven't met. And, so they've got red flags there. A couple of things with that is the writing is always quite small. So if you're an older Australian, that's your first problem. You're not going to be able to read that. So that's the first thing. And second of all, you're flicking through. You're not really thinking about.
No, you're so excited.
I've actually made the decision to get myself out there and put myself online. So it's more of the idea of understanding that you've done that. You've put yourself online. That's great. Yeah. If this happens, and I say to them, if you have not met for coffee in 10 days, 5 days, 2 working weeks, forget the weekends, it's a no-go.
Well, see,
it's a no-go.
To me, that is, well, I say common sense, and that's been unfair to people that, but this is slightly different. But of course, a dating app, and you brought the point up in part 1. It's to have company, meet.
That's right.
So if you're not meeting, why are you looking for a companion if you're on an oil rig out in the middle of the Indian Ocean?
That's right. And look, and they have these, I had one of the scammers tell me that he was so worried about the pirates, out in the ocean. I mean, I really laughed at that. Yeah. But the sad part about that is that I know someone else received the same text message about the pirates, so I need your help for money. We've got to go back to meet them for coffee. And I will say to the scammers, let's meet for coffee. Let's meet in Sydney. Let's meet at the cafe in George Street in Sydney. And there's always an excuse. Yeah. Can't meet there. Oh, look, I've just got to jump on a plane and I'm now going to Turkey to finalise this contract. Yeah. So there'll always be a reason why they cannot meet. They'll say, absolutely. And then 2 days beforehand, there'll be a reason. For me, ding, that's your red flag. Yeah. And I know it's awful to say it's common sense because I say it's common sense, but I want you to go back. Why did you want to meet somebody? Yeah. Yeah. You really want to cuddle someone. You want to cuddle. You haven't had a cuddle in 20 years. You want someone to give you a cuddle. It's about. Yeah. It's that idea of going out for dinner or, it's don't change the playing post.
Do you think the world has gone so crazy at the moment and we spend so much time on our phones, it's almost like some relationships are just this electronic relationship. Absolutely. So that probably creates it. Well, I haven't met, but we're texting every hour, and that's fulfilling my need. It's stopping me being lonely.
And I doom scroll. It is the most. I've got this great book I'm reading and my phone, and sometimes I go, all right, and there's 2 hours gone. I go, well, there's like 10 brain cells I've just lost because I've just doom scrolled for 2 hours. I've learnt nothing. Yeah. I've learnt that humans are stupid. That's about as far as I've learnt. But we're so used to that. So you're trying to teach people, don't use this phone as being your source of a relationship. Yeah. That's not
in what we're talking about here, but you can see how people are. If you've come up and said, well, have you met them? No, but I've communicated.
And they've sent me photos. Yeah. So I'm talking to a scammer now that has stolen Barry Dubois' photos, from them. Right. So I've done a few with Barry Dubois. So I'm just allowing them to see how how he's progressing me from point A to point B. And so there is just photos after photos of Barry with his twins and Barry at this event and Barry and poor old Baz. I mean, his photo is, I don't know Barry personally, but Baz and Dr. Chris Brown, my Lord, their photos are just used all the time.
Chris is out there, isn't he?
Oh, Chris is out there, and bless him. And a couple of times I've talked to, fake Chris, and fake Chris has got a, African accent, and I just, whatever. So all these photos create the story. Yeah. So I get it why you believe what is happening on your phone as a relationship. Yeah. I get that because that story, hi, my love, I'm at this, event speaking. And Barry was at the event speaking, but it was in Sydney, and he's not dating you, and he sent the phone. And my kids, this is their first day at school. Yeah. Well, it was their first day at school, but that's not, it's not Lewis, it's Barry.
But if you buy into the first lie, it's easy to buy into the rest of them.
Well, that's,
what's the playbook for how far do they take it? Like how long does it go on?
Could go years.
And
they just keep going. It goes as long as you're prepared to give money.
And so some of the victims will stay with it for years.
They have no reason not to believe any different. And this is
the challenge. When your mum's at home saying, well, I've got a relationship, it's an online one, but we communicate all the time. And
he's just had to stay over in Turkey a bit longer. And once it goes for that length of time, the psychological impact is far more difficult to get them away.
Yeah, okay.
Because you've got to look at, they are now so invested in that.
They are in a relationship in their mind.
They are. Yeah. So, I've got a lady in Western Australia, and she's taken a loan out, and doesn't matter how much I prove to her,
she's not going to listen.
She's not. There is no way. This is just, so then it becomes a issue where family have to, get involved and start taking, control over finances, and that becomes, then there's another family. You know what I mean? There's another issue, because this can go on for such a long time, and they lose so much money, and people don't actually understand, and I'm not going to use the word clever, how manipulative scammers are. They use words work. You know, we can say the most hurtful words and break somebody down just with words. You know, not with violence, and that's what they use. They use the power of words,
and making people feel guilty if they're not doing something.
Absolutely.
And this poor person, he's going to be deported if I don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's their skill set. That is what, and we don't need to be educated now, because we've got enough large learning models out there that'll help us. So anything we need to say, you know, we can say anything.
That or the book that you said, the playbook, it's just answers to all the questions.
And in that playbook, not only is it just your basic, it actually then will take you into a sexualized part. You know, how do we then take it to maybe a sextortion part, where I can get naked photos and move into that part, you know. So though it's only 23 pages, I haven't got down to that sextortion part in my interactions with the scammers, but you can see that there is the love bombing, then the sexualized bombing, you know, and then they will talk about how to talk in sexy language, but how to say certain things that you're reading it makes my skin crawl. But I can see how that works.
But you're stepping away, and looking at it objectively. But if it was,
but I can see how that works.
And then they get them to send a naked photo or whatever,
Absolutely.
and then they could even declare and compromise them and go, it's a scammer. We're going to post this on everyone.
And now we're in another world of pain. You know, this is, you know, I mean, that's another discussion too about sextortion, but that still works there for adults as well. You know, if they know that they're at a certain point where they're not going to get any more money, for example, let's try the sexy talk.
It's evil, isn't it?
It's evil. It's not. This is evil, and this is why this has to be that discussion of this is pure evil.
It is, because it's ongoing manipulation of someone, and I would dare say that there's people whose lives have been destroyed by this, not just financially, emotionally, psychologically.
I mean, we know people have ended their life because of the intense shame that they have felt, but also society doesn't do a good job of it, because we call people stupid, foolish, naive, dumb.
You're combining the shame with also losing the relationship too. So we've all been down when you've lost a relationship, and we've all been shamed. You combine the two of them together, and it's horrible.
It's the perfect storm. And that's the hardest part. This is the perfect storm. And they say, look, you know, there are a lot of scams out there, but they talk about the romance side as being the most devastating, because it has the emotional, you know, connection, the love part, and the financial part. You know, an investment is just like the financial part, where this has these two components that are so intense. They come together, they combine, and it's your perfect storm.
I'm feeling sad for the victims as you're
awful.
talking.
It's awful.
If people become aware, or it might be a friend, a family member, or whatever, and you suspect how would you? Well, first of all, with your business, people can reach out to you, and you can come in and do the investigation, and then provide the facts. Prior to that, what would you suggest to people?
Take it very steady, very calm.
So don't have a big intervention. Have all the family there and go, look.
Please don't do that. Please, look. You know, let's say Granny's involved in something. Ask her questions. Show interest. You know, Nan, tell me a bit about him. I'd really like to know. You know, show me some photos. You know, and just slowly show interest. So what you're trying to do is, I always say, like, plant the seed yourself. You know, get them in there. Oh, okay, Nan.
Ideally, it would be if they came back with the realisation and came back to you and said, I think I've been scammed. That gives them a bit of dignity.
And that makes it a bit. And look, I had a gentleman in Tasmania, 59, great good, down-to-earth Aussie man,
Yeah.
like lovely man, truck driver and everything. And he reached out to me and he just said, I just don't know. I think this is real. I really do think it's real, but can you just do right? So, of course, I came back to him and said, mate, it's not.
Yeah.
And these are the reasons what. He was devastated. He'd taken out a loan. He'd used finance out of savings, all this sort of stuff. And he just said, are you sure? And he kept ringing me and it went over for weeks, and I said, yeah, I'm sure. And I said, but I want you to promise me one thing. You're a truckie. I said, I don't want you to hurt yourself. Yeah. You need to ring me on this time. And he did, and he gave me guarantees and we worked through some processes and everything. Then I said to him, I now need you to go and get some help with your thing. And he reached out to some mates and he burst into tears. And one mate was really good. The other mate said, well, you're a fool. Yeah. So then he said, I've got a mate who supports me and I've got another mate who doesn't support me. So then we've got to be a bit more kinder because it's so intense. And he rang me a couple of weeks ago. He said, I'm doing better. I'm now so ashamed that I've lost so much money to what I thought was a real person. Yeah. And that's now what he has to deal with that as well. He's still, he's got his one mate that's helping him through. But I was really worried for him and we've talked through that.
So.
Yeah. And he was so real. He was so and I hate the word vulnerable, but he was so honest with the way he felt to me. And I went, mate, you're going to be okay. You will be fine. You just got to work through it. Please understand. And then I explained to him about, the organised crime part of all. So you understand this is just not Joe sitting in a cafe.
Well, I suppose that helps to a degree that you haven't been conned by just one person. You are a victim of organised crime.
Yep.
And on the issue of organised crime, we were talking off mic about recent things in the media where people are talking about what goes on in these compounds, where these scammers are. Just tell us what you know about that, because I find that frightening that this is what's happening in the compounds. Yeah. That are generating these scams.
So a victim will apply for a job, for example. So there's a known victim. He was a gentleman from Pakistan. He applied for an IT position in Thailand. So he rocked up there. The person who was pretending to be part of the company greeted him, took his passport, then drove him down to Myanmar. To the border down Thailand, and he was taken to a scam compound, and he talks about if you weren't meeting your quotas, you're beaten, you're electrocuted, and we talked about there's photos of just people that are just covered in bruises and welts, and they have a quota to meet, and they are held under armed guard that is run by Chinese organised crime or organised crime, and in each level within those compounds will be for something, whether it be an investment, business email compromise, romance scam. So that's your job, and you'll be working 16, 17-hour days.
They're virtually prisoners.
They are.
Human trafficking.
You cannot leave, and if you do leave, you could be killed.
Yeah.
End of story. Yeah. There's no. This is not fairy dust anymore. This is happening in real time as we speak now. We have got, and I think the UN have talked about 100,000, 300,000 victims of human trafficking. The numbers might be wrong. But these are people who have gone to apply for what they thought was a legitimate job and have then been taken prisoner and driven to these compounds. And once one compound is shut down, another one is built, is created, because we're talking about corrupt governments, corrupt police, we're talking about very wealthy organised crime, and I said to someone the other day, I mean, we could be saying that one of the organised crime leaders could be buying homes in Sydney Harbour for $60 million. I mean, I don't know that, I'm not part of that world, but that's what we're talking about. This money is used to pump up the drug trade, the crimes, the firearms trade. I don't know, nuclear weapons. Don't know.
It could be terrorism. You don't know. It's organised crime.
I mean, it's there, And it's trillions.
But and that's what, I think when victims look and think, how stupid am I? That's what they're up against.
That's
isn't
right.
it? That's what your 78-year-old mother
Was
is
up against.
competing against organised
right.
crime on an international network
That's right.
stage.
And even if we look at if we look at the Yahoo boys in Nigeria, for example, so they're the known group that talks about romance, who are very good and at what they do. I'm not upselling that. I shouldn't say they're very good, but they are good at what they do. They're still organised.
Yeah.
I have a scammer on the books now, and he was part of the Yahoo, and he talks about they train every day. They learn from each other, whether it be they post stuff on TikTok, whether they share documents, whether they write something in.
Like this worked. I had a situation like that. I said this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't do this. Yeah. This is what we,
so they're constantly evolving.
100%.
Have you seen in the times that you're looking that they're changing the playbook?
No, not really. I think what I've noticed now is the use of technology is against us more.
Yeah.
So I would have said to you 12 months ago, if you're doing a video call, they won't be able to move around. Now they're actually utilising AI or apps that allows them to use their body more, to put hands over their face. Because normally I would say, don't do this, don't put your hand over your face because it'll pixelate and it won't work. That's all changing now. Yeah. That's all. So then that reinforces that I'm a real person.
Right.
So they will find one app and say, this is working really well.
Yeah.
And they will train, and then they will video themselves doing it. Then they'll put it out for the next scammer to learn from that.
Right.
So I just watch that and go, that's exactly. So I try to teach people. And I say to people, this is what they're learning. So don't think that just because you're talking to somebody on a video chat that they're real. They're not. With the use of AI, which again
I
is
give
a whole...
up.
Me too.
It's just too confusing, isn't it?
But can't we just go back to face-to-face? What is wrong with people? Why are you happy to sit in your home and talk to somebody on a phone?
Yeah, it is weird. If people want to reach out to you, how do they?
Look, you can just go onto my website, which is twofaceinvestigations.au, and everything's there. My mobile number's there. Send me an email. Go onto all my socials.
You're out there.
I'm out there. I'm out everywhere. My big fat head is out there. If you tie Kylee Dennis up, you'll be able to figure me out.
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up.
Okay.
But
a bit of a Debbie Downer, really. Sorry, I've got nothing positive to end on.
No, the positive thing is, any former police officer, working police officer, and I can tell you we're a working police officer. I thank for the service to the community. For the drinkers, I thank you for running a hotel. Yes. But wow, what you're doing now, I think is so important, and you're making a difference, and it's a area that you've changed my thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to laugh when I see someone. How could they be so stupid? Yeah. And just look at the impact and the manipulation of vulnerable people. And if I learnt something in police, I don't like crooks preying on vulnerable people. So, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Keep talking,
I'll
which
keep
I'm sure
talking.
you will.
I will.
Okay, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.